Welcome. This lesson's a very simple lesson in the sense of all we're going to be doing is giving you triangles with angle measures, and we give you a missing angle that you need to find its measure. And the key or the concept behind it is all three angles of any triangle that's drawn on a flat surface or that's flat, the three angles add up to 180. I would recommend you get in the habit of actually taking the time to write an equation and solve it. What I mean by that is 86 is the measure of one angle, this angle here. If I add that to the measure of this second angle down here, which is 40, and then I add it to an unknown value because I don't know what this third angle measure is. I'm going to use a variable x. That sum, when I add it together, equals 180. The reason I recommend you get in the habit of writing the equation is these will get harder in a later lesson where writing the equation makes them easier to solve. But what I do is I add the 86 to the 40. That's going to be 126 plus the x is going to equal the 180. And then I just subtract over the 126 from both sides. I'm solving a simple equation, minus 126. And it gives us the missing value of that angle, 180 minus 26. That's going to be 4. I have to borrow from the 8. That's going to be 7 minus 2, which is 54. So I come over here and I type in 54 as my missing angle measure. Now, like I said, they will get harder. There we go. But this will be a later lesson, but they will give you triangles that aren't drawn, but it's the same concept. Two angles of a triangle, 16 and 58 degrees, are the two angles. What's the third? Now, again, I don't mind you getting in the habit of, okay, I'm going to add those two together, 16 plus 58, 6 plus 8 is 14, carry the 1, 1, and 5, that's 74. So those two angles added together, 74. I'm going to minus that from 180, right? Because I got to find the third missing angle. 10 minus 4 is 6. I had to borrow from the 8. So that's a 7. 7 minus 7, 0. And 1 minus 0. So it's 106. So I just minus 16 and 58 from 180, and I get 106. Okay, now let's move on to a little higher. What they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, you have a right triangle, has one angle that measures 50. What is the measure of the other acute? Well, it looks like they only give us one angle. But remember, it's a right triangle. If it helps, draw a picture. Draw a quick right triangle. Right triangle means one angle is 90. And then it gives us one of the other acute angles, which is 50. Let's say this one's 50. Well, now I can find that missing third angle. What's the measure of the other? Well, 90 plus 50 is 140, and 180 minus 140 would be 40. So I would end up having a other angle measure of 40. Come over here and type in 40. Okay, now be careful when they start giving you isosceles triangles and it gives you an angle measure, only one angle measure, because there could be two possibilities. And what I mean by this is don't assume the 80 is like the one angle. In other words, what I mean by that is I could have a isosceles triangle where one of the two angles that are congruent is 80, which means the other angle that's congruent to it's 80. And then the other one would be the remainder. So 80 plus 80 is 160. And then that remainder angle would have to be 20, because 20 plus 80 is 180. So I would come over here and say, all right, I have two angle measures, because it says what other angles could be which other angles could be in that triangle? Well, we have another 80, because one is 80, the other one's 80, and then we have another one that's 20. But the 80 does not have to be the one that's congruent to the other angle. It doesn't have to be one of the two that's congruent. So what I mean by that is I could go like this, draw wider where this is the 80, and then these two angles that are equal are the ones that are unknown. So I have two angle measures that are unknown. That's two x's that are unknown, equal or plus the 80, because if I add all three together, x plus x is 2x plus the 80 equals 180. This is where writing the equations, I think, makes it a little bit simpler. Minus off the 80, I get 2x equals 100. And then divide by 2, x is 50. So I could actually have two other angle measures of 50. So now think about this. I have three correct answers. In a triangle, it only has three angles where one angle measures 80. It says an isosceles triangle has an angle measure that is 80. Which other angles could be in the isosceles? There's two possibilities. One where the two congruent angles are 80, the angle measure given, or one where the two congruent are not. If they're equal, then that third angle must be 20. But if the 80 is not the one that are equal, then the other two would have to be 50. So there's three possible solutions. I hope you watched this long to get to this point. Otherwise, you're going to be making mistakes when you answer those questions. Okay, I'm going to skip this one because I'm hoping to get one more of the isosceles. That's a right triangle. Right triangle, one's 90, one's 6. So the other one would have to be whatever 90 plus 6 minus from 180 is, or I could just do 90 minus 6. That's going to be 84. Now here's another isosceles one. An isosceles triangle has an angle that measures 138. So I'm going to think about the two possibilities. Either the two congruent angles are going to be 138. Wait a minute, does anyone see a problem with that? There's a problem with that. I can't have two angle measures that are 138 in a triangle. That would make it bigger than 180. All three would be larger than 180. So it's impossible for the two congruent angles to be 138. So that eliminates that possibility. The only other possibility is that it's a wider one where the top one's 138 and the bottom two are going to be equal, x and x. Again, I'm using a variable, so x plus x, well, that's 2x plus 138 equals 180 minus off the 138. That would leave me 2x equals, again, here I'm going to do this. 10 minus 8 is 2. Had to borrow from the 8. That's a 7 minus the 3 is a 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I get 2x equals 42, or x is 21. So in fact, this has only one possibility, 21. So if that is an isosceles triangle and has one angle measure of 138, then it can only be the possibility where it's the largest angle and the other two acute angles would have to be 21 each. So there are times where the isosceles you'll only have one answer. There are times where you'll have three answers. So again, be careful with those isosceles triangles. 118 is too big of an angle for there to be two of those, so this will only have one solution. But if it's less than 90, then you'll have three solutions, technically, three possible answers. The one where it's congruent with the other one, and the one where it's not. If you have questions, please ask me in class, and I will clarify that at that point.